Hello again, fellow YouTubers. Solomon Pleasant here for Team O.M.G Vanguard, and today we are doing another Card 5 Vanguard clan analysis review thing. Today we have Pale Moon, and right off the bat, I remember my Spike Rose review, I said that the Dark Zone doesn't really have many ways of running decks. I was wrong. Darky Regs and Pale Moon do have ways, because I forgot that Season 3 gave them archetypes. Pale Moon got a really good archetype, but we'll get into that. So, what do Pale Moons do? Well, if you recall my Spike Brother video when I said Spikes use their soul like a gun and kind of just shoot it off to give their units power, Pale Moons use their soul kinda as an extra hand, so to say. And what I mean by that is, Pale Moons manipulate their soul to have field advantage. You basically soul charge with Pale Moon, and then from the cards that you have in your soul, you use them and call them out to rear guard. Now, this can be effective because not only does it conserve your hand, but oftentimes a lot of the effects that allow you to soul charge really good cards that you can have for field advantage, and we'll get into mainly Silver Thorns when we talk about that, but you can basically get off really good combos by having extra cards in the soul, and even some of the cards allow you to get off extra attacks because you called cards from the soul. So they really use their soul kind of as a second hand, which allows them to retain their original hand advantage, which also allows them to obtain a field advantage. Also, a lot of Pale Moons, much like Spikes, often go back into the soul after they're done, which is a very nice plus because, again, when you have very meta decks that involve blowing up the field, it's nice to have a deck where your field isn't in jeopardy because half the time your field isn't there. Now, some history behind Pale Moon. Pale Moon in Season 1 was a very mix-matched deck with the only valid thing being the Silver Thorn, with the only valid thing in Season 1 being the Crimson Beatstick, which somebody else named it that, so I kind of went with it, but we'll talk about Beast Tamers in a minute. And at first they didn't really have much of a concept. They had a concept, but they couldn't fully use it because a lot of they only got a few good support, and the rest of their support was usually crap, i.e. Mistress Hurricane, i.e. Mistress Hurricane or Golden Beast Tamer, which we'll talk about those in a minute. So, however, during Season 2, they got one specific card that would change them from then on out, and that was Silver Thorn Dragon Tamer Lukier. Lukier is a really good card, and she's the whole reason why the Silver Thorn archetype exists. She is the original card as to why the Silver Thorn archetype exists. And then Season 3 is when we get that archetype, and I will explain it just in a second, because Silver Thorns are a very powerful deck. You will come to know them as a very powerful deck. And then, of course, we have Season 4, where they kind of just get shoved off with almost everyone else that isn't a meta clan, so doesn't even show up in Season 4. And then Season 5, they get stride units, so they fit into that category again of, we have stuff. And the main user of the Pale Moon clan in the show was Asuka, and yeah, She was a pretty valid fighter. Pretty valid fighter, I'd say. There was this other guy, but he was only in Season 1 and nobody remembers him anyway. So, let's just get into decks, which Pale Moon actually do have two very prominent decks. Now, the first one isn't as well known. Beast Tamers are an archetype for a deck that hasn't been fully recognized because a lot of their support isn't the best. I.e. Golden Beast Tamer is garbage. Really, really garbage. We don't use Golden Beast Tamer. However, there are Beast Tamers. There is a Grade 0 Silver Thorn. There are two Grade 0 Silver Thorns. There's a Silver Thorn Grade 1. There's Turquoise and Crimson Beast Tamer combo, as well as a Beast Tamer Grade 2 Silver Thorn. And then we have Cracking Beast Tamer, the Legion, Golden Beast Tamer, the crappy one, and Bunny Queen Beast Tamer, which is actually pretty valid. And then Barking Manticore is kind of there for support. Now, Beast Tamers aren't necessarily an archetype. They're just an archetype mainly because there's enough of them, but they aren't fully a deck in my opinion just because they don't fully have a balls-to-the-wall Beast Tamer. However, You can make this into a very cheap Pale Moon deck because Silver Thorns are so expensive. You could make Beast Tamers a deck if you tried hard enough and you got the right cards. It would take a lot of skill, though, to make Beast Tamers a very valid deck, because they aren't as powerful as Silver Thorns, they aren't as fluent in mechanic as Silver Thorns, they just aren't as good as Silver Thorns. And that is the main reason why we see Silver Thorns so prominently and Beast Tamers aren't as much of a deck anymore, because Silver Thorns are just that good. Beast Tamers are still somewhat a valid deck. Barking Manticore, Crimson Beast Tamer, and Turquoise are all very valid units, and can be used if you do it right. But as is, it's like, yeah, Silver Thorns are just better. Speaking of which, get the elephant, dragon, circus animal, insert circus animal or circus joke here. Let's just get the big thing in the room out of the way. Silver Thorns are amazing. I think we all can agree on that. They're very good. They are very good. They are their own deck. They have their own trigger base. They have at least 2 starters. They've got a pretty solid size 1 and size 2, solid grade 1 and grade 2 lineup. And their grade 3 lineup is very nice because you can manipulate it. And of course they have their grade 4, which I think is average. Lukier has that skill of... if I can get back up there. She is a 10k, but she has that skill of Counterblast 3, call a grade 1, 2... a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3 to rear guard, and get +3 for each, so that's a very nice limit break ability, and everybody likes that. And then you kind of branch off into the 2 decks that are formed for Silverthorn. Now, a lot of people like to use Silverthorn Dragon Empress Venus Lukier, because nobody really likes Dragon Queen Lukier Reverse, except moi, because I think the reverse is a very, very defensive and very easy deck to run. You don't even have to run because people don't really like cross rides anymore, so they only justify using Lukier because she can actually get power. But they mainly use Venus, and then they kind of just derive from not using the full archetype and using more crits than standard draw, which I think that's just being unoriginal because you can just throw crit into anything and it would be fine, but I think it's better to run Rainbow build for Silverthorns because it's way more fun. But what are Silverthorns really? They're basically taking Pale Moon's concept of soul manipulation and driving it to the max, and using almost anything in their power to get that soul manipulation. They call out things from their soul with their grade 3s very easily with counterblast, and they basically are the best parts of Pale Moon. Cancel. Oh, it went back for me. Thanks. But yeah, Silverthorns, the best Pale Moon at its best. That is Silverthorn in a nutshell. They also can get off some multiple attacks, which is really nice, and is a very nice concept, because when you have a deck where you want to play defensive, it's nice to also be able to go aggro without using your hand. It's a very nice touch. Now, besides your standard 4 heal, how would you run Silverthorns? Now, there are 2 ways of doing this, actually. You could just run balls to the wall crit and you would be fine. But another way to do this is Rainbow build. Pale Moons are something that you can Rainbow build, and you can run 4 stand, 4 draw, 4 crit, and 4 heal. Because you can gain a lot of things off a stand or draw with Pale Moon, because those multiple attacks do help you. Because Pale Moon is allowed to have field consistency by constantly calling stuff from the soul, so having draw triggers is nice because it not only fills up your hand more for when you can't get stuff out, but also for that extra power and another card in your hand. Stands allow you for multiple attacks, and crits just give you extra damage. So, honestly, like, Pale Moon is something where you could pretty much just test it however you want, and it would be fun. You can run Rainbow build to just critical cannonball. You could really do a lot of things with them. They're a very diverse trigger setup, in my opinion. Now, as for specific grade zeros, when I talk about specific cards, I'm not going to talk about the Silverthorns because we all know that the Silverthorns are amazing. So I'm just going to bring up other cards that were either used to be good or are still relatively valid, in my opinion. And for a grade 0 starter, we have Girl Who Crossed the Gap. So, this is pretty much what Pale Moon was before Silver Thorns were a thing. Counterblast 1, put into the soul, choose a Pale Moon. If you have a Pale Moon Vanguard, choose a Pale Moon other than the card named Girl Who Crossed the Gap from your soul, call it to rear guard. That was Pale Moon before Silver Thorns. Their whole idea was counterblast, get out something else to swap what you have. So, like, really early Season 1 Pale Moon had the idea of manipulate the soul by having weak cards and then replacing them with better cards. Which is a somewhat valid strategy in my opinion. Now, as for P-guards, it's really hard to determine. It really depends on how you want to run your Pale Moon. If you're playing your Pale Moon more defensive, I guess P-guards can be fine. Granted, I only use one just because I'm a cheapo, but I'd say if you're playing a defensive Pale Moon, 3 is a pretty solid number because it doesn't overfill your deck with P-guards, but you still have some for defensive. If you're playing offensive Pale Moon, I think it'd be smarter to run, like, 3 would be your max. Like, you do not go above 3, but I think it'd still be smarter to run, like, 2, because then you still have some defense, but you're still getting more aggro, and you're getting stuff in the soul that you actually want. Because the thing with P-guards is, in Pale Moon, once that P-guard goes into the soul, it's useless to you, because you cannot get it back in your hand. You can only get it to the field. And I don't think you want a 6k on the field as opposed to a 7 or 8k, because those little numbers do count sometimes. And now, I would actually be talking about Midnight Bunny, but everybody knows her, so I'm just going to talk about this guy, Magician of Quantum Mechanics, which is another very interesting card. To summarize him, counterblast, you counterblast 1, you put him in the soul, call something else out, and at the end of your turn, swap him back. This again is very Season 1 to Season 2 Pale Moon, because their idea is, okay, I have crappy cards right now, let's swap them with other cards I like, and then put those cards back so I can use them again next turn. So, Magician of Quantum Mechanics is actually, I still think, a pretty valid unit for non-Silverthorn decks, because you can put him in, get something you actually want out, attack with it, send it back, and you're good. Because it won't be in jeopardy of dying because it's in the soul, and Magician's out there probably on a rear guard where he can't be hit. So, it's a very nice, very defensive yet aggro strategy, and that's what Pale Moon kind of is. It's defensive yet aggro, because they're allowed to attack, but at the same time they can still conserve their hand. Something that, again, Murakumo might want to take a page from because they can't seem to figure out what they want to do. I think I've been trashing Murakumo a lot recently because I've realized some things. Alright, so Grade 2 is the only one I really think is worth talking about that isn't a Silverthorn, would be Crimson Beast Tamer. So, this is one of your key core units in a Beast Tamer deck. Now, granted she's an 8k, but she becomes an 11k when you have Turquoise Beast Tamer, when you have a card named Crimson Beast Tamer in the soul. So, say you have another 8k in the soul, this gets +3. Now, the way the whole Crimson Beat Stick idea works is you have 2 of these in your front row, you have Barking Manticore on Vanguard, and then you have 2 to 3 Turquoise Beast Tamers in the back row. Everyone's getting +3 from that. So you have a 13k Vanguard, a 10k Booster, and an 11k Attacker, and you just need 1 Crimson Beast Tamer in the soul in order to do that. Just 1. So, that can be a very offensive and very impressive way to fight. Granted, again, the only reason this isn't used, and this isn't the best, is in Pale Moon, is because Silverthorns are better. But, this is still a pretty valid strategy, and I would actually make a recommendation to T to maybe, because I want T to get back into his idea of making, like, very out-of-the-meta decks that with cards that nobody really uses anymore, I would definitely put Beast Tamers there. I would definitely put that as a recommendation. So, maybe you guys can comment in a video of, T, do some stuff. Under the bus! Alright. So, moving on to grade 3s. Now, before I talk about another grade 3 that's really good, I already talked about how Mr. Hurricane's bad and stuff like that. Like, there are bad cards in Pale Moon. There's There's Golden Beast Tamer, Mistress Hurricane. You got... Yep, Golden Beast Tamer and Mistress Hurricane are the two big ones that come to mind. Some cards that I should actually mention outside of... Now, Nightmare Doll Alice is probably one I should mention, but I'm not going to because it's basically Midnight Bunny except it's a grade 3, so it's really good. So I'm just going to talk about the Break Ride because it's another really good unit that can be used in any deck. Any Pale Moon deck. You can throw in Miracle Pop Ava. Now, Miracle Pop Ava is probably the only card I actually run in my Silverthorn deck that isn't a Silverthorn. Her Break Ride ability is give +10, and the auto ability of choose 2 Pale Moon Rearguards, put them in the soul, and then call 2 Pale Moon Rearguards to separate Rearguard. Also, you can Soul Charge 1 to get +100, +1000. So, that's a very nice Soul Charge ability, but she basically summarizes the best of Pale Moon, and how you can combo that with Silverthorns or Beast Tamer, or pretty much anything. What she basically says is, hey, you basically get 5 attacks this turn. I am basically bad end for Pale Moons. She doesn't give anything power, but she does allow those multiple attacks, which most Pale Moon cards can't get off. They can't get off multiple attacks, so Ava's there to help you. And that is why she's a very, very good unit to have in any Pale Moon deck whatsoever. Another interesting tech deck that I would like to see from Pale Moon is the Nightmare Dolls, because I think those can actually be a deck if someone tries hard enough. So, overall, where do I rate Pale Moons? I rate Pale Moons dead in the medium tier. And here's why. Silverthorns are amazing. No doubt. I've said that throughout the entire video, but that's the problem. Silverthorns are the only good things in Pale Moon. Since there really isn't much else that you can do for a deck in Pale Moon, the only thing you have is Silverthorns, and this is why things like Mega Colony or Tachikaze, this is why they're in mid-tier. Because they only have one archetype, and that's the only good thing about their clan. Whereas top-tier high-meta decks, such as like Narukami or Kagero, you can have multiple different decks of that, which can all be very good. Different archetypes can be very good. Pale Moons have one. They have Silverthorns. Beast Tamers are almost there, but they just don't have enough support yet to be a valid enough deck to rival Silverthorns. And when you have an unchallenged archetype for a deck that can't be challenged, it becomes an issue, and that's why they can't get to top tier anywhere in top tier, because they only have one good archetype, which means everyone has to run that archetype, which means people know how to defeat that archetype a lot easier. So, another reason why I rank these below something like Spike Brothers is because I'm just trying to think, out of the 3 original Dark Zone clans, Pale Moon is the one that doesn't get enough power. The Beast Tamers are probably one of the few cards that actually get power from having stuff in the soul. Granted, Mistress Hurricane does that, but not that good. And yeah, you have Silverthorns that can kind of also do that, but they don't really get much power from having stuff in the soul, like Dark Your Eggs, or getting power from soul blasting like Spikes, so that's why they're still mid-tier. But overall, they're still a pretty valid clan. I think they can be really good in fights, and overall, they're, again, a very nice clan. Very medium-tier clan. So if you're looking for an interesting clan, this is definitely one. So, anyway, this has been Solomon Pleasant. This has been the Vanguard clan Pale Moon, and this is Solomon Pleasant from Team O.M.G Vanguard, signing off.